My name is Emily, and I thought family was supposed to be about unconditional love. But from the moment I married Ryan, his parents, Margaret and Robert, made it painfully clear I would never be good enough. No matter how hard I tried, no matter what I achieved, Jessica, my sister-in-law, was always the shining star. It started small at first. Margaret casually forgetting my birthday, yet throwing extravagant parties for Jessica's smallest accomplishments. Robert proudly hanging Jessica's photos in their living room, yet mysteriously never finding room for ours. At holiday dinners, my promotions and Ryan's achievements in the tech industry were quickly dismissed, overshadowed by Jessica's new boutique or her latest fashion line. I tried to ignore it, but things escalated when Ethan and Olivia, our twins, were born. Margaret and Robert didn't visit the hospital. Instead, they attended Jessica's fashion show that very weekend, claiming they couldn't miss such an important moment for her career. It broke my heart to watch Ryan's pain as he held his newborn children without his parents by his side. Then came the inheritance, a pivotal moment that finally brought everything to a head. When Ryan's grandparents passed, we learned they'd left behind a sizable estate. Ryan quietly admitted to me that he hoped, for once, his parents would acknowledge our family and split things fairly between him and Daniel. But instead, Margaret and Robert shocked us by leaving every last cent, millions in property, stocks, and heirlooms, to Jessica and Daniel. They didn't even bother to hide their reasoning. Jessica and Daniel have big plans. They're building a brand. You two don't need the help. You're stable, independent. It's admirable, Margaret said, smiling as if it was supposed to comfort us, Ryan finally snapped. So, this is our reward for being responsible adults? He shouted, his voice raw with pain and anger. All my life I've tried to earn your respect, and each time you show me I'm not enough. Margaret stared blankly, almost confused by his pain. Oh, Ryan, stop overreacting. This isn't personal, it's practical. Robert shrugged dismissively, saying, You two have always done fine on your own. Jessica needs us. Ryan stood there, visibly shaken. I took his hand gently, feeling his heart break. Let's go, I whispered softly. There's nothing more for us here. As we turned to leave, Margaret delivered one final blow, words that would haunt us both for years. If you're this upset over something like money, maybe it's best you both stay away for a while until you come to your senses. Ryan stiffened, and I squeezed his hand reassuringly. Then that's exactly what we'll do, he replied quietly. That night, as we packed our belongings, we realized there was nothing left tying us to them. Not love, not respect, not even basic kindness. 7 years passed after that night without a single phone call, message, or apology. We moved across the country, settling in Seattle, determined to build a life free of their toxic influence. We believed we'd closed that chapter for good. But life has a funny way of reopening wounds when you least expect it. And 7 years later, a knock at our door shattered the peace we'd worked so hard to build. 7 years passed by without a single call or message from Margaret and Robert. In those years, Ryan and I created a life filled with laughter, joy, and love, something we'd never truly felt around his parents. We built careers we were proud of. I advanced as a product director at my tech startup, and Ryan rose to become a senior engineering lead. Life in Seattle treated us well, far away from the painful memories we'd left behind. Our twins, Ethan and Olivia, quickly became the heart of everything we did. They brought joy to every ordinary moment, from chaotic mornings at breakfast to bedtime stories whispered softly beneath twinkling fairy lights. Ryan once told me late one evening, as we tucked the twins into bed, "This, right here, is the family I've always dreamed of having." And it was true. We had each other, our children, and the happiness we'd built independently, without expectations or strings attached. Then, on a seemingly normal Saturday afternoon, the life we'd carefully constructed came crashing back into the past. The doorbell rang unexpectedly. When I opened the door, I stood face to face with Margaret and Robert, two people I'd successfully kept out of my thoughts for 7 entire years. They stood there awkwardly, with cautious smiles, as though hoping to erase all the pain they'd caused with one unexpected visit. Before I continue the story, I'd like to connect with you, my wonderful viewers. Where are you watching from right now? Go ahead and drop your country's flag down in the comments below. I know you might be watching this video alone, but remember, you're never truly alone. At the very least, I'm right here with you, sharing this moment and this story. Now, back to that unforgettable Saturday. Margaret spoke first, her voice hesitant but hopeful. "Emily, sweetheart, it's been so long. We really miss you and Ryan. Can we talk?" Every fiber in my being told me to shut the door right then, but curiosity kept me frozen. I took a deep breath and asked calmly, "Why are you here now after 7 years of silence?" Margaret exchanged an uncomfortable glance with Robert before finally admitting, "It's Jessica. She and Daniel, they've decided not to have children. We never expected this." And now, her voice trailed off, but the meaning was crystal clear. Ethan and Olivia were suddenly their only chance to experience being grandparents. I stared at them in disbelief. After all this time, after everything they'd put us through, they returned because their perfect daughter-in-law couldn't fulfill their dreams? My heart pounded furiously, a mixture of anger and disbelief swirling within me. Robert stepped forward, breaking the tense silence. "Emily, Ryan, we made mistakes, but we're here now, ready to make things right." But I knew the truth. They hadn't returned out of regret or genuine affection. They had simply run out of options and were using us once again as a fallback plan. Gathering every ounce of strength I had, I looked them both squarely in the eyes and said firmly, "You had 7 years to realize your mistakes. You had countless opportunities to reach out, to mend what you broke. But you didn't. You chose Jessica over us every time. And now you're only here because she didn't give you grandchildren?" Margaret's eyes filled with tears, and for a split second, I felt a pang of sympathy. But it quickly faded as I remembered all the years of hurt they'd caused. "You can't just walk back into our lives because it suits your needs," I continued firmly. "We deserve better, and our children certainly deserve better." Without giving them another chance to reply, I gently but firmly closed the door, sealing it shut on their manipulation, their favoritism, and their conditional love. Little did I know, shutting that door wouldn't put an end to their attempts, but would ignite even greater challenges, testing the strength of our family in ways we'd never imagined. In the weeks that followed, Margaret and Robert refused to accept our decision. Quietly, their attempts to reconnect intensified, becoming more desperate and manipulative with each passing day. At first, it was calls. Emotional voicemails left late at night, filled with promises, apologies, and gentle pleas for forgiveness. But soon, their tactics grew bolder, and boundaries were crossed. One day, while I was preparing dinner, my phone buzzed with a text from an unfamiliar number. It was Jessica. My heart sank immediately. "Emily, can we please talk? I never wanted any of this. I'm sorry." Curiosity overcame my hesitation, and I agreed to speak with her. When Jessica called me moments later, her voice was shaky, filled with genuine emotion I'd never heard from her before. "Emily, please listen. I know you see me as the villain in your story, but trust me, being their favorite has never been easy." As I listened, Jessica revealed her own struggles, the endless pressure from Margaret and Robert, their constant interference in her marriage, and their expectation that she would fulfill their dreams. For the first time, I saw the other side of the so-called perfect daughter-in-law. Jessica was exhausted, burdened by their expectations. Yet, even as I empathized with her, I couldn't forget the privileges she had willingly accepted for years. I understand your pain, I admitted honestly, but it doesn't change how they treated Ryan and me. We can't simply erase the years of hurt because it's suddenly inconvenient for them. Jessica sighed softly. I know. They always pitted us against each other. I hated it too. But now they feel they've lost everything, and they're desperate. A complicated silence lingered between us before she added gently, just think about it. Not for them, but for your kids. That night, Ryan and I stayed awake late into the night, discussing the call. I could tell he was deeply conflicted. Though his pain still ran deep, hearing Jessica's perspective had shaken him. They're still my parents, Emily, he admitted quietly. Maybe we should give them one final chance. I held his hand, trying to hide the anxiety I felt. Ryan, what if nothing has changed? What if we let them in and history repeats itself? Not with us, but with Ethan and Olivia. He nodded slowly, recognizing my fear. You're right. We can't let them hurt our children the way they hurt us. But what if they've truly realized their mistakes? It was a question neither of us could answer, leaving us more conflicted than ever. A few days later, tensions escalated dramatically. Margaret unexpectedly showed up at Ryan's office, begging him publicly to reconsider, causing a scene in front of his colleagues. Mortified, Ryan returned home shaken and angry. This isn't love, Emily. This is control, he said bitterly. Even now, they're willing to embarrass us to get what they want. That was the turning point. Any lingering doubts vanished completely when Margaret and Robert appeared once more at our doorstep the following weekend, uninvited and visibly agitated. Margaret's voice trembled, filled with frustration rather than remorse. Emily, Ryan, this has gone far enough. We are your family, and we deserve another chance. Robert stepped forward aggressively, adding, Do you think keeping our grandchildren away is fair? Do you want Ethan and Olivia to grow up without knowing their grandparents? I took a steadying breath, anger flaring inside me, but responded calmly. Fair? Was it fair to ignore us for years, to choose Jessica over Ryan every single time? Was it fair to exclude your own son from family inheritance simply because we chose to be responsible adults? Margaret shook her head, voice rising. Emily, you're being selfish. Think of the children. I am thinking of them, I snapped, surprising, even myself with the strength in my voice. I'm protecting them from exactly this. The manipulation, the conditional love, the favoritism. They deserve grandparents who love them genuinely, not grandparents who only want them because their first choice failed. Robert began to speak, but Ryan stepped firmly forward, interrupting him with quiet determination. Mom, Dad, it's over. You've shown us clearly who you are and what your love costs. Emily and I refuse to let Ethan and Olivia experience that. You made your choice years ago. Now we're making ours. For the first time, I saw genuine shock and pain cross Margaret and Robert's faces, not just frustration, but the heartbreaking realization of what they'd truly lost. Without another word, Ryan gently closed the door, signaling the definitive end of a painful chapter in our lives. As we stood together in the silence that followed, I saw tears glisten in Ryan's eyes. I knew how difficult it was for him to finally draw such a firm boundary. But I also knew, deep in my heart, we had done the right thing. Protecting our family was worth every ounce of strength we possessed, no matter how hard it felt in that moment. Little did we realize, however, this confrontation wasn't the end, but rather a powerful beginning, as our decision would soon spark even greater changes within the family dynamics, challenging everything we'd ever known. In the months that followed, life finally seemed to regain a sense of normalcy. Margaret and Robert slowly backed off, their calls and messages fading into silence. Though we never received the apology or acknowledgement we'd secretly hoped for, the peace we gained in their absence felt priceless. Yet, just when we believed our troubles were truly behind us, Jessica reached out once more, this time with news that completely shifted our perspective. She called me late one evening, sounding different, almost broken. "Emily, I know you probably don't want to hear from me again," she began, her voice unsteady. "But Daniel and we're separating." Surprised, I listened carefully as she continued. All this pressure, the inheritance, the business, Mom, and Dad's constant expectations, it was too much. Daniel and I realized we weren't living our own lives anymore. Everything was for them, not for us. I felt a surprising surge of sympathy. Jessica, the golden child, was finally feeling the weight of the expectations she'd willingly accepted for so long. She paused, breathing deeply. "Emily, I want you to know something important. That inheritance they gave us, it's nearly gone. Our business ventures failed. The boutique closed down months ago. Mom and Dad don't even know yet. When they find out, I'm scared they'll turn on me too." I took a deep breath, choosing my words carefully. "Jessica, you deserve better than to live your life trying to meet their impossible standards. Ryan and I learned that the hard way." She sighed softly, relief audible in her voice. "You're right. I wasted years chasing their approval, and now I've lost almost everything." After our conversation ended, I shared the details with Ryan. He was quiet for a moment before speaking thoughtfully. "They didn't just fail us, Emily. They failed Jessica, too. All along, none of us was ever truly good enough for them." Jessica's call stirred something within us, a deeper understanding of the damage Margaret and Robert had caused, not only to us but to the very person they'd spent their lives idolizing. Soon after, Ryan and I made a decision. It was time to let go completely, not in bitterness, but with a sense of closure and clarity. We chose forgiveness, not for Margaret and Robert, but for ourselves and our children. A few weeks later, we received a handwritten letter from Margaret, addressed to both of us. For the first time ever, she openly acknowledged her regrets, admitting that she'd failed us deeply. She wrote, "Ryan, Emily, we've made terrible mistakes. Our blindness has cost us dearly. We've lost not just you, but also ourselves. Though it may be too late for us to rebuild what we've broken, please know how deeply sorry we are. Perhaps, one day, you might find space in your hearts to forgive us." As we read her words, we felt no bitterness, just a gentle sadness for opportunities missed, relationships lost, and love that could have been shared. Ryan folded the letter carefully, placing it away. "Our family deserves peace," he said quietly. "We can't change the past, but we can give Ethan and Olivia something better." And that's exactly what we did. Together, Ryan and I focused on raising our children with love and kindness, free from conditions, free from comparisons. Our home became a sanctuary filled with laughter and genuine affection. Ethan and Olivia grew up surrounded by the unconditional love we'd longed for our entire lives. Years later, as I watched our family laughing together around the dinner table, I knew we'd made the right choice. Family wasn't defined by blood, money, or expectations. Family was defined by the unwavering commitment to choose each other every single day. And for us, that commitment was more powerful than any inheritance could ever be. Through Emily and Ryan's powerful journey, we're reminded of one beautiful truth. Family isn't defined by blood, wealth, or expectations. It's defined by unconditional love, respect, and the courage to choose one another every single day. Sometimes, having the strength to let go of toxic relationships is the greatest act of love we can offer ourselves and our children. Now, I'd love to hear your thoughts. If you connected with this story and agree with Emily's decisions, please comment 2 below. If you feel differently, please share your thoughts by commenting 7. And if this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. It truly means the world to me, and helps me continue sharing these heartfelt stories with you. Thank you for being here and joining me on this journey.